The views and opinions expressed do not necessarily represent those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting group. Access Fort Wayne is a department of the Allen County Public Library. If you or anyone you know might be interested in making a television show, please call 260-421-1250.
Hi, Dr. Rudy Kachmann. Welcome to our Mind, Body, Spirit show. Today's talk will be maybe the most important thing in your life is how to deal with stress, the stress of life. Actually, that is a term that is new to our lexicon. Over 150 years ago, we didn't know what the word was. 100 years ago, the word stress was not part of our lexicon. We didn't know what it was. Engineers working on the Brooklyn Bridge in lower Manhattan, where I used to live, stress was a technical term, mechanical forces to physical structures. We didn't realize that the human being actually, including animals, incidentally, mammals, experience stress. So today, stress is the inability to cope with perceived, real, or imaginary mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. Yes, that we can actually think. Animals have a certain amount of stress also, and they can feel our stress, and I can feel their stress. Yes, and so that results in a series of physiological changes in our body, and it's because we think it affects our organs of our body and how we behave, how we act, and there are things that automatically come out. So internal stresses can be physical, infections, inflammation, or stressful psychological environments, okay? So external stress can be physical situations. It's too hot or it's too cold. That can stress us. And here's a big one. Remember this is a big one. A sad soul can kill you quicker than a germ. So to be stressed can kill you. So you got to be aware of it, how to reduce it, how to avoid it. And that's what I'm going to teach you about. And medically speaking, stress is a non-specific response of the body to any demand. Yes. And the presence of stress causes physical measurable changes, increases the pulse, increases respiration, increases our heart rate. Virtually all systems of the body, cardiovascular, pulmonary, gut, endocrine systems, nervous systems act to meet a danger. Yes, it does this through hormones and nervous systems, sympathetic nervous system, for example. Stress has replaced infectious disease as the number one health evil facing Western culture. Isn't that interesting? What I find interesting about it, that years ago I realized that when I was looking at patients, I was a neurosurgeon, but when I was looking in talking to patients, I would ask them, and what's going on in your life? I did. Most of medicine still doesn't do that. They want to do a procedure, give you a pill, or run a test. And sometimes it's obvious what you got to do. If something's broken, well, you got to act quickly. But most of the time, I'd say, what's going on in your life? And so as the number one health evil facing Western culture is stress. You know, it's kind of interesting that I realized it, and it's partly because I saw the patients, and I read a book by Candace Pert, P-E-R-T, Molecules of Emotion. She explained how the brain, through neurotransmitters, through hormones, and I'll talk more about her later, affects our body. I understood that, and I treated my patients accordingly. I still did quite a bit of neurosurgery as a neurosurgeon, but a lot of patients, I sent them for a massage or chiropractic treatments or exercise. Yes, and I wrote a book about it here, which you see, The Mind Body, the first book I wrote, that explains in great detail, in unbelievable detail, the biology, physiology of stress. And I encourage you, I highly encourage you to somehow go to the library and get it, or you could probably buy it on Amazon for $5. They sell used copies for $4, I believe, because then you have in your hand and understand what stress can do to you, okay? In 1920s, let's go through the history a little bit. 1920s, physiologist Walter Kachmann used the term stress to describe the body's response to unpleasant conditions. Here's the first one to write about it, so I encourage you to, and he wrote a book about it. The fight or flight response, Cannon's classic book, The Wisdom of the Body. I encourage you to read it. Let's go some more through the physiology. The body has automatic control over functions like temperature, digestion, heart rate. You don't have to think that your body knows that language. And a single nerve, the vagus, goes back of the brain, continues down the body via the spinal cord and nerve branches, and sends signals to every organ, even the eye. If acute stress occurs, your pupils dilate so you can see better. So the whole body is connected through hormones, through molecules, through autonomic nervous system, sympathetic, the stress system, the vagus nerve, which is more relaxed, but it can react to stress too. So those nerves coming down the vagus are connected to all the glands, the heart, the bronchus, the lungs, the stomach, the intestines, the bladder, the sex organs, the adrenals. It's all interrelated, and the messages get sent around. Kachmann even stimulated the hypothalamus, just at the base of the brain, above the pituitary, and found an emergency response system in our body. Isn't that interesting? And when I think back about it, I realized that in my patients years ago, to the point that I felt a lot of the patients I was looking at for stressful people, over 30 years ago, I gave them money to build an auditorium in Lutheran Hospital, and it is still there. I walked through it the other day. 263 seats, I think. And I did it there for other doctors to teach their patients, no matter what the specialty is, but most doctors didn't get it. They still don't get it. Yeah. And I'll talk to you more about it. And acute stress simulates someone's going to kill you. You get a car running right at you. Acute stress stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, the adrenal glands, and there's an outpouring of adrenaline, like hormones that prepare the body to fight or flight. Someone's getting ready to fight you, but your body visually reacts to it, and then secretes hormones and the nervous system, and you react to it. Glycogen, you always need energy, so there's glycogen in the liver. In an emergency, is converted to sugar for energy. Blood from the gut is sent to the muscles in an emergency, and the legs so that we can run faster. Blood also clots faster. And those are messages sent through hormones and nervous systems. So there's a lot of physiology, chemicals, nervous system. They all occur together. And Hans Seeley, this science, remember, has been developed in the last few years. He was in Canada, and a very charismatic individual. He was a neuroendocrinologist. He popularized the notion that stress can make people sick. It wasn't realized. Remember, I realized it, though. I built an auditorium. I gave lectures there. I realized it looking at the patients. I read Candid Pert's book, Molecules of Emotion. And then Hans Seeley, remember I mentioned him already, so he wrote about the pathology of exposure to stress, theorized that poor adaptation to stress was the basis of most illnesses. He's the first one to bring it up, remember, around 1950s or so. But it's really not taught in the medical school amount to anything, because you'll be avoiding disease, and then they wouldn't be making any money, okay? So for 20 years, it replaced psychoanalytic theories of the causation of stress. Then Elmer Green came along. He developed a biofeedback system. He would, people watch monitoring devices. He said every change in the physiology state is accompanied by any change in the emotional state, conscious or unconscious. And then Herb Benson came along at Harvard University, and he started publishing about it. And remember, I built the auditorium. I was aware of it. I saw it in the patients. I went and visited Herb Benson at Harvard. I took a bunch of people I was working with. We went and visited him, yes. And and he said once the acute stress has passed, the response becomes inactivated. So you can be relaxed quickly. Stress hormones go to normal relaxation. It can go away if the stress leaves. And the trouble is that we have a perpetual fight or flight situation. Small stresses increase stress hormones and affect our performance because we are stressed. We can develop symptoms that are caused by the stress because of these hormones. They tighten the muscles. They change our metabolism. But long-term chronic exposure to stress can affect your memory. That's really of concern because it destroys part of the hippocampus, leading to memory impairment. So people who are long-term stressed and don't get rid of it, can't control it. Everyone has stress. I have stress. Even now that I'm retired from neurosurgery, but I'm stressed about the upcoming TV show, what I do to relieve stress, but I do it regularly. I exercise, yeah, and because it makes me feel good. I moved from my house in Devil's Hollow. I moved to downtown Fort Wayne because I wanted to continue to do these lectures and help people. It wasn't about me, about the people I was helping. And inside where I'm living now, there's a gym, and inside there is a smaller gym. You can close the doors so you are in there by yourself, okay? Well, you're in there by yourself. And what I do, you won't believe this, but please consider it. You can do it in your house. I tap dance. Yeah, I have on fancy clothes. Then I sing some songs, do some stretching, and they have weights in there. They have bicycles in there. And I use the weights, and I dance with the weights and lift some weights. So what am I doing here? I'm relaxing. I feel good. I feel wonderful. And they have a mirror there, so I'm seeing myself do that. I'm affecting the whole body. So we can lose a memory. So people who are in stress all the time. So what makes matters even worse, we pour adrenaline into our body with energy drinks, cafe lattes, and movies of violence. We become more stressed. So stress levels increase also by the food we're eating. We're eating food to respond to stress, to feel good, to get the dopamine hormones flowing, to eat a donut or a sugary drink. The sugary drinks make us take in more sugar, and people are gaining weight and becoming unhealthy. So being unhealthy, so Herb Benson, and I'll hold this book up for you, he published this book, and then he republished the book, a wonderful book to read. He goes through the science of it, and he writes in his book what events can change your stress situation. Death of a spouse, that is the biggest causation of stress. Marital separation, he has a whole list in here. Death of a close family member, personal injury, fired at work, marital retirement, change in family member, pregnancy, gain of a new family member, business readjustment, death of a close friend. These are all stressful events. And his is a very good book to have a look at. So the longer the stress can decrease our immunity, yes. And here's one you will not believe, but that's what I experienced, and that's why I acted on it. 60 to 90% of doctor visits are stress-related. They don't walk in and say, oh, I have stress. They say, oh, my neck hurts, or they say my back hurts, or I have a headache, or I have a bowel upset. Yes, it's decorated many times in symptoms. You don't walk in and say, hey, I'm stressed. And if the doctor does not understand what stress does to you, then he may just look at the x-ray and overtreat you. I'll speak more about that in a minute. So but doctors miss it. What they should be saying is, unless it's obvious, what's going on in your life? And find out, well, I lost my job, my husband left me, I have 3 kids, and I get neck pain. You see what I'm saying? And what's on their x-ray may just be what's representative of their age, not the cause of an illness, and they probably may want to operate in it. That occurs commonly. I don't think that will ever change because they do not teach this at the medical school. I've been there. I want to give a talk on the mind-body connection and avoiding diabetes, and they never invited me. Yes. And let me tell you something that you'll find very interesting. Nocebo. We know what nocebo is. No, you don't. I asked 300 doctors what the word meant. They did not know what it meant. Do you know what nocebo means? We know what placebo is. I hand you a pill, and if it's a little bigger, you like it. It may heal you. Why? Because eating it, your belief, your thinking is changing the molecules in your body. Yes, the hormones. it's changing things. It may heal you because you believe. You believe. It can be, yes. But the nocebo is negative speak. Hardly anybody knows what the word means, which is shameful. The medical school needs to teach it because people come to see the doctor. They may be you're seeing them about stress, and they can go after the stress with a massage or walking, teach them stress reduction techniques, turn on the music. Norman Cousins wrote a lot about that. He was traveling a lot in Russia, and he was exposed to a lot of chemicals. We don't know for certain if it was a cause, but he developed total fusion of his spine. Can you imagine the pain that he had? Yeah, Norman Cousins. And he wrote a book too, Anatomy of an Illness. I encourage you to look at that. You get in the library or online. And he eventually got over the whole darn thing. His whole spine was fused. Can you imagine the pain he had? He found that if he watched a funny movie or participated in something that made him laugh or dance, he could relieve pain for 2 hours. Why'd the pain go away? Because of the hormones and nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic. He relaxed and he felt better. He found it would work for 2 hours. I'll tell you more about him in a minute. A very interesting book to read. And so remember that the nocebo is huge in medicine. There's no money in teaching people how to get well through relaxation technique. Turn on the music, watch a funny movie. Nobody gets more money. But if they do a procedure on you and nocebo, that's where the money is. That's where the money is. That will never change because they don't allow you to teach in the medical school what this thing does to your body. That's critical. That's well summarized in these books, especially my book here. It tells you the science of it in great detail. And so most people, especially providers, don't know what nocebo means. It's pathetic, pathetic, pathetic. It needs to be taught in the medical school. So the technical society is responsible for much of information overload. And it's getting worse because they don't teach in the medical school, but the people in general now are much more involved with the internet. That gives you information. It's a good part, but the bad part is that they're so locked into their phone, they're walking in front of my car. They're totally unconscious. I see it almost every day. I see it almost every day. There's good part to the internet, but there is also a bad part. People seem to be totally locked in, and they may be doing this because they're stressed. They feel good when they're looking at the phone, at the internet, or their computer. I've seen them at Starbucks. I'm getting a cup of coffee. I see them sitting in front of me. They're totally unconscious. They're only conscious about what they're looking at. And people look at different things. Some are good, some are bad. They may improve what they're learning. But if they walk in front of my car, they could get killed. And believe me, I see it almost every day. They're walking along the sidewalk, and all of a sudden they're in the street, they're back on the sidewalk. So if you drive, be careful of those people. So how to get people from the unconscious to the present situation. So like I said, there's good, and there's bad. But what I'm going to talk about now is fascinating. We have in our body, we all have it, we have what are called endorphins. We have our own interconnected hormones that make us feel good. They secrete hormones almost like morphine. The system that it wasn't really discovered till around 1975 or so. And Herb Benson was aware of it, and he developed the relaxation response. He was at Harvard, and he looked at medicine as a three-legged stool. We have surgery, we have pharmaceuticals, we have the mind-body connection. But remember what I said, the mind-body connection is 70% of the people walk in the doctor's office are stressed out. But if the doctor does not, and he's not been taught to ask that he knows something about it, what's going on in your life, he's going to lead you to get a scan or MRI or X-rays or give you a pill. Here's your pill. See you later. Today, most doctors get barely 10 minutes to talk to you, but that's no excuse. That's no excuse. They do not know about this connection. Believe me. So in 1975. Herb Benson published a book, and then republished it in 2000, and he's teaching people how to relax, a quiet environment, learn to repeat a word, pick something that sounds good to you. To me, it's spirit. Another one, it could be related to religion. That's fine. That is fine. Power of Positive Thinking is a very good book to read. Norman Vincent Peale in New York City, where I lived, actually built a psychiatric institute next to his church. I've been there and I've looked at it. I lived in New York. One of our elected presidents, actually, his family went to that church. That's true. At least his dad did. He took the kids with, yeah. I visited, so I went to see it, and I will admit, because they knew about me. They knew about the book I wrote. And since I had a psychiatric institute attached to the church, when I said who I was, man, they wouldn't let go of me. I even went outside when Norman Vincent Peale was pointing his finger trying to make a point. I jumped, and it was on a stool, so I jumped in the air, got my finger up there, and we took a picture. I have that picture somewhere. Maybe it's in my mind-body book. I think it probably is. So, but what he was saying, what Benson was saying, is that get a quiet environment, pick a word or phrase or a prayer, look at an object, concentrate on an object, have a passive attitude, breathe deeply, and visualize something good that you would like to be. And put aside distracting thoughts. That was his original recommendation that he had when I went visiting, but he changed it a little bit, and I'll discuss that with you. Everything advances, science changes, and so I'm going to review a minute here what he changed it to, which science changes, everything changes. So an update, year 2000, and pick a focus word, a short phrase, a prayer, an affirmation, I believe, spirit, I use, somebody may use God, they may, to bring religion in, I think it's excellent for relaxation. Sit in a comfortable position, close your eyes, relax your muscles, and visualize your muscles getting softer, starting the feet and go up to the neck. Breathe slowly, naturally. Say your focus word silently. Assume a passive attitude. Don't think about what's stressing you at that time. Continue for 10, 20 minutes. Do not stand immediately. Open your eyes. Maybe visualize what you like to be in your life, and practice this. I use this system at home. I look at a very fancy-looking stump. That's my drum. That's my focus group. Occasionally, I hit a note, and so people are susceptible to illness when under stress. Yes. Interesting. China and Japan, like we get a day older, and what they do, and they support the elderly. They bring them into the house. They take them with them to dinner. They exercise with them, and we send them to nursing homes. Yes, I tell you what I did. Now that I think about it, I'm proud of it. My parents, lived in New York, had a deli in New York, and I was offered a job in Fort Wayne, and I was working here. And one day I called up my parents, because they're getting elderly, and I said, I bought a house across the street, a small house, for them. You know what happened? My mother showed up the next day. She showed up the next day, left my father behind, because he was running a deli and he had a lot of friends and he would eat certain places, and he didn't show up for a month, but finally he showed up. And when I sold the house I was living in, and because I started working at another hospital, so I moved across town. You know what I did, and I'm proud of it? I built a little house onto my house. Yes. There was a door that separated them, but my father, I noticed every morning, was cooking breakfast with my wife while I was recovering from the previous day's work. Yeah. And then, I'll tell you a funny one then, because he was used to this deli food, he would send for it, and it would arrive at my door, COD. I paid for all of it. He ate it, but he lived till age 89. My mother lived to age 96. Matter of fact, my wife was putting a shirt on my dad. He never said a word. He sank down. He died at age 89. And he didn't always eat good food. He ate deli food. But he had a very positive attitude, partly because he had no financial trouble, because he could live on Social Security because I provided his house. I thought I'd throw that story at you. It's kind of interesting. So your own body actually has its own pacemaker, the hypothalamus, just at the bottom of the brain. So the brain has a master clock. We all do. And it secretes hormones and affects the nervous system. It actually has a spiritual vacuum. Yeah, even if you don't go to church, don't believe anything, it does respond to spiritual things. So maybe there's something is around. So many people, a lot of people don't go to church these days. Even, John Lennon wrote that song, Imagine. Imagine there's no heaven. I wonder if you can. But, some people, I live in New York, so I went to the Dakota and stood on the Imagine symbol, paid somebody $20, they played music, and I sang the whole song. Yes. So, remember, some people don't have spirituality, and I do notice, so people who have spirituality, they seem to be happier. Their hormones are secreting something to remember. My daughter's husband, Scott, had a job actually in China. He would fly across almost once a week to dealing with a company over there, and very stressful, traveling that way all the time, and he became quite sick, and from the stress of it, to the point that viruses started attacking him. Yeah, he developed shingles, and it's a very complex, difficult story. So he lived through stress. Our brain reacts to stress. the frontal lobes, for example, become greatly affected by alcohol and drugs that we use to get rid of stress. If you were to lay a donut in front of me, it's actually in our system that even a healthy guy like me, 88 years old, no illness or no pills, who exercise regularly and stress is down. If you were to lay a donut in front of me, I'd probably eat it. It's that ingrained in our genetics, so remember that. And then they have now found in the temporal lobe, there's the hippocampus and the amygdala, and they can be affected by stress. That's where the emotional reactions are located, but it's also that's where a center is that helps you decide what you're going to eat. So fear is a primitive survival mechanism. That's how animals and us humans were able to survive thousands of years ago. And so cortisol is secreted by our body. A steroid helps meet the demands of stress. Dopamine, that's the nucleus accumbens, is at the bottom of our brain, and it's a quick fix. Alcohol, drugs, and donuts, for example, you feel better right away. That's why people drink alcohol, I suspect. But alcohol can be very unhealthy. Yes, I notice you go to restaurants someplace and I see people putting down a lot of alcohol. They don't realize that alcohol can affect the metabolism of the liver and is a big cause of cancer. And so you have to develop other ways of relaxation, play pickleball, take a walk, sing a song, do music. So remember, I already mentioned placebo, I will help. We believe it. Hormones get secreted. Neurotransmitters get secreted. We feel better. The nocebo, I will harm. So faith causes hope. It can be a placebo. Mm-hmm. And the placebo effect is huge. 35 to 75% benefit. If you believe it, odds are it will help you. When I lived in New York City and I was really reading it in a book, there was a neuropsychologist in New York, lived in New York, close to me I was. He would take a lady who had advanced cancer. He would take her to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is right 3 blocks from my house. He would take her there to look at her favorite art. He would do it once a month. He did it for a number of years, and then they would go to lunch and talk about what to eat a healthy diet of good fats, and not a sugary diet which destroys your immunity. And her cancer went away completely. One case doesn't prove anything, but kind of interesting. And so let's talk about the voodoo effect. You know, the ancient tribes, they could point a finger at you and said, you're going to die, because the tribe get rid of you. And usually the person would die. You sink to the ground and died. And what it was, they secreted stress hormones because of the pointing of the finger, and your heart would stop and they would die right there. Yeah. And many of us are still voodooed. So, and some people are voodooed by their death by diagnosis. They hear a diagnosis, well, you get cancer or something, and maybe it's even been spread. But if you are a positive thinker, and I even wrote a book about it, healing cancer, the power of your mind. Look at this. Look at this. I think anybody who has cancer, for example, probably should read this book, just because they tell you that you have a cancer maybe that's very serious. that, I play pickleball, and there is a guy playing there. He's had every joint replaced. Reasons I don't know for certain. Every joint. Now he's got metastatic cancer, and he's playing pickleball. Yes. Now there is an example of positive thinking. I'm not giving up, and his hormones in his body he's secreting because of his positive thought process. That for him is a stress reliever, and he's surviving it. We'll see. I pray how long did I see him, and isn't it a wonderful thing? So don't throw in the towel. Positive thinking. Think of Norman Vincent Peale. He put a psych institute next to the church because a lot of people going to church are stressed. So he put them next door, and they were taught how to relax. The Power of Positive Thinking, a very good book. So the placebo effect is huge. For example, if they give you a larger pill, you're more likely to feel like it's going to do something, but the pill may be nothing. Let me tell you something more about Norman Cousins, and you've heard of Dr. Schweitzer, a German who went to Africa around 1920 or so, and he did surgery. He saw the patients. Unbelievable person. If you read about his life, I have a picture at home of him actually working. Yeah, I do. And but Norman Cousins went there, and some of these things he didn't realize about the voodoo effect and the native doctors, and Schweitzer said to him, "I want to show you something." And at a distance stood a native herbalist, a voodoo guy, and he was talking to a bunch of natives from Africa. And what he did, he gave herbs in a bag to about a third of the people. They left very happy. And another third had to do some incantations, some dancing, some movements, okay? And another third, they sent to Dr. Schweitzer because he could do surgeries on them or teach them how to get well. Incidentally, Dr. Schweitzer's one of his favorite things was playing the piano. He did that to relax his stress. Yeah, very interesting book. So remember, I built the auditorium at Lutheran Hospital because I realized stress was a big cause of people's problems. So I wrote, to summarize things, I wrote the 20 prescriptions for stress reduction. Yeah, right. I have it in my hand. 20 of them. You need to. I can't read all 20. We don't have time for that. But meditate, create a spiritual place in your home, visualize daily what you'd like to achieve that day. Say something thankful. Don't focus on negativity. Practice yoga, tai chi, walking, dancing. Enjoy exercise like I do. And think positively. These 20, I'd like you to have a copy of them if you feel like. You don't have to do all 20. Do some of them. They work. A copy will be available for free at the Wesleyan Integrative Health Building. Yes, if you go in Washington, there's a light. You go right to Lutheran, so you go this way. You go to their building. And on the third floor is a library of my 2,000 books, which I read to do these shows. And Wesleyan called me and asked me if they could have them. I gave them to them, and they now have established a library on the third floor. We're just at the beginning, and you got to make sure it's open there's a gentleman named Jack's first name. You hit the bell and he'll walk you upstairs and say, I want to see Kachmann's library. And in there will be free copies of these 20 prescriptions. I just have 100 copies I just did a few minutes ago, because we are now in this wonderful library. We have to thank Andrew Carnegie and the Library Association for everything. And if you look at what he's written high up on the wall, it says everything in this library is free. So I had these 100 copies, and they were free. Yes. So remember I showed you the cancer book and the power of the mind. Stress can decrease your immunity, and cancer rates go up. Mm-hmm. And Prevention is the Cure for Breast Cancer is a book that I wrote. I find out that breast cancer is largely 90% a lifestyle disease. 90% a lifestyle disease. You can, it's in the literature, 200 genes cause breast cancer. You can't take 200 drugs. But if you follow a good lifestyle, relaxation, thin people can have diabetes, get rid of diabetes. Heavy people, 80% can be diabetic, but a healthy 90% chance you will not get breast cancer. And cancer is a sugar feeder. Otto Warburg described that many years ago, that cancer is anaerobic, and it takes 13 molecules of sugar to feed the cancer. So you don't feed the cancer doesn't go. So to avoid cancer, and you look at one of my other YouTube shows on that, you need to go YouTube Rudy Kachmann, and there it is, 1 hour talk on cancer prevention, breast cancer prevention. Each has a 1 hour talk. So I wrote another book about pain, and that has been a huge problem. Here it is. Also, very big discussion on the hormones, enzymes, Rudy Kachmann, the fraud of chronic pain, and realize a lot of these pain centers, which aren't as many now as there have been. I myself actually went after them, went to Huntington and met with the prison people, and they did do something about it. And some of the pain guys had to leave town because they were prescribing narcotics for everybody to addict them. They could sell their drugs and make a lot of money. Those pain centers are not as around, but this was huge at one time. OxyContin, a drug, for example. You used to go to a doctor, and he'd say, "What's the level of your pain?" And when you said 8, it gave you addictive drugs. Supposedly they don't do that, but I took somebody to one of the emergency rooms recently. I noticed they used OxyContin. Highly addictive. But a lot of narcotics are highly addictive, okay? And narcotics are not needed most of the time. The 1 to 10 rule, incidentally, was thrown out. They don't have that anymore. What's the level of your pain? Yeah. Oh, you need OxyContin. You said 8. But the trouble is, addicts would make up the number. Mm-hmm. And then in a few states, I think you can still do that. So let's try a dose of laughter. The human race has only one real weapon: laughter. Singing, dancing. What am I doing in my gym? My weapon, the gym. And a smile. A smile is huge. Wear bright clothes. You know, that really worked for my patients. since I kind of figured out the mind-body connection. Remember the auditorium I read Kenneth Pert's book, and I always wore fancy clothes. I used to travel around the world to play tennis tournaments. Yeah, I don't do that anymore, but I'm playing pickleball, but I don't go across the world anymore about it. But fancy suits. I wore one last night when I went to dinner. Yeah, when I had bought in Austria. Yeah, and people stopped me just to fill the buttons. Yeah, and but I had fancy shoes, fancy socks, fancy shirts, ties. People don't wear ties anymore, unfortunately. I got 3 of the most beautiful ties you ever saw. You want to buy them? Contact me. I still got them. Yeah, but people would come in and they'd talk about my clothes, starting the shoes, and then after a while I said, well, why you here to see me today? And they would say, I forgot, I'm well, and they leave. True story. Absolutely true story. I told 6 neurologists who work in my office, and I wanted them to read some of this book about stress, because most diseases they see are stress-related. It may be from what the people are eating, but most of them, I gave them 6 free books. You know what happened? They never read them. Never read them. Yeah. It's the way it is. That happened to me. Plato and Aristotle wrote about humor. You know, in those days, they didn't have antibiotics or major things. So, and then I told you about Norman Cousins. Eventually, that total spine fusion totally went away because he visited people all over the world. And remember, laughter in a funny movie would take his pain of his total spine fusion, would take his pain away for a few hours. Yeah, but funny movies relieved his pain. Isn't that interesting? So music is a mood-enhancing food. No question about it. You've read about the Mozart effect. And this one you will not believe, but I have a picture to prove it. I have a picture to prove it. I played at Carnegie Hall when I was a kid. My mother had a dream for me. She even had a piano. We only had a bedroom and a kitchen. That was all we had. They were in New York City, 3 blocks from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, 81st Street. She even had it in there. And but I practiced in the park baseball and tennis. I didn't practice my music. I'm still playing music. I still go to Sweetwater. I was on the stage the other night doing karaoke. If I Rule the World, and then the next night. And I love pickleball was one thing I did. And now I've got to think of something for it. I got to write a song for December. You got a good idea? I like the words tap dancing in there, but if you're musical and you know how to write a song, I'm thinking tonight when I go home, I'm going to ask AI to write me that song. We'll see. So different music for different people. You know, we all respond differently. And the psychomusicologists there was specific music. Dr. John Ortiz, that Tower of Music has 24 classical menus, all different songs that you might enjoy to relax. My wife likes different music than that I like, and we're all different. We're all different. Chuck Lang has DVDs, music and visual scenes with it. So music, seeing something. And so music and laughter are good medicine for pain relief. Music and laughter. So Candace Pert wrote that book. Remember I said 1972, Molecules of Emotions. She's the one that was looking through an electron microscope. She worked at NIH, the only woman working there. And she saw these little things coming out of cells on an electron microscope. And those were the protein projections where the hormones in your body would send the message to the cell. She's a discoverer of that, okay? And then she also wrote and the Power of Positive Thinking, My Story, by Norman Vincent Peale, the Marble Church. Remember, that's a church with a Psych Institute next door that a former president went to. Maybe it's dad, and maybe it's him, maybe it's both, but it's interesting. Occasionally, miracle cures occur. Are they related to a positive thinker? I don't know, but they do occur because the hormones, the neurotransmitters, the endorphin system, because you're a positive person, you can suddenly descend into the cancer and destroy it. Interesting. Isn't that interesting? So, what other things can you do? I think chiropractic care, osteopathic care have value. A 13-minute walk, a look at nature, swimming, yoga, dancing, tap dancing. Sure makes me feel good. Jumping rope, complete sports, pickleball, martial arts, personal trainer, weight training, proper nutrition, keto way of eating. I think the science is changing, and I'm changing. The originally at Lutheran Hospital. Remember, I was a doctor. I put the auditorium in there, which is still there. One time, an Indian doctor came there and invited by Indian cancer specialist, and the cancer. And so they had me sit in the middle of the auditorium in the first row. So I was facing the guy, and upstairs I had Kachmann Mind Body Institute. Here's a picture. That's me in front of it here. Me in front of it. Mm-hmm. And where people who go in and do yoga, relaxation, Tai Chi, and this picture, is of me. That wasn't the purpose, but I was connecting the mind, body, spirit 20, 30 years ago. I notice now when I walk through the hospital, and I spoke to the recent head of the hospital, they took it out and replaced it with a police station. Yes, they did. The president of the hospital did not make the decision to do that. But it's there. But the auditorium is still there, and my ideas are still floating through the hospital. I walk through it. Everybody stopping me. I haven't worked there for 10 years. So the message, the nurses got it. They got it. And starting in January, I plan to go back because the president of the hospital gave me permission, and that I would start my lectures again. So I think what I would do is speak about stress. Remember, that causes 70% of the diseases you go see a doctor about. You may not need those pills. You may not need those injections. And the other ones I'm going to pursue is to get rid of diabetes. That causes 100 to 200 diseases, which are all over the city, and you can get rid of diabetes in 2 to 4 weeks, but we're letting people have it. So I call it Rudy's War on Diabetes. So I'm going to be speaking about stress and about diabetes. If I get turned down here, I go on to something else. But remember, I'm 88, no pills, no illness, tap dance, play pickleball, take a walk, do music, go to Sweetwater regularly. One case means nothing. It's not about me. It's about you. I do this because I love you. I care about you. Look at YouTube shows, read some of the books. Go to Wesleyan and pick up the one on stress reduction. And we'll see you next time. We will continue on this path. I've been doing this 15 years, and I plan to do it at least till I'm 100 years old. Come laugh at me. Come dance with me. Play pickleball with me. Could I be your partner, Rudy? And just go to Aces, the place. I'm there 3 times a week at least. I do this because I love you and I care about you. It's about you. It's about you. Namaste. Thank you.